next. I don't know if this is a good thing or bad thing. Maybe we'll ask our guest. Jess Piper is back with us, my friend. And boy, does she make them just melt into little puddles. It's fantastic. Jess Piper, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Tony?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm having a great Monday. It's my kids are off school. Everyone's having a great time. It's cold as shit out there. Holy moly! It was -1 in my truck this morning when I went to grab coffee. I didn't even walk outside this morning. And I walked outside yesterday, and my face was frozen. Have you been able to go outside?
I do not go outside in this weather. My husband does go outside in this weather and takes care of taking the ice off of everything, starting cars, trying to lift, trunks open because they're frozen shut, trying to mess with donkeys. It's a thing. It's a thing.
I love how you transition from trunks, trucks, and donkeys. That's fantastic. That sounds like rural Missouri to me. Like, yeah, we gotta unfreeze the door. We gotta feed the donkeys. Okay,
yes,
this
exactly.
is Missouri. You know what I mean? So I saw a video that you posted, and of course, you stay on top of school voucher scam more than anyone else out there. And I know it's because this issue is near and dear to your heart, but I know you know the risk, because it feels like to me, the closer that we get to some of these sessions, because these legislative sessions are in full swing. And boy, when I mean they're in full swing, these Republicans are not holding back on their fascism and what they want to do to not just the others community, but their own communities. Tell us again, remind the audience about what is happening in some of these states, maybe Missouri specifically, but Tennessee's another one. Texas is another one. I know there's so many states that are really trying really hard to institute this school voucher scam. But more than anything, tell us why it fits under this narrative that they're trying to really take your rights away, because these are rights that we have, right? Or am I completely wrong?
No, our state constitution, says that all of our students should have free and fair education. And we have all of these Republicans who are pushing for voucher scams. These scams come from people like Betsy DeVos, the Coke industry, the Herzog industry, people who are very wealthy, millionaires and billionaires, who want to pass this system so that they can line their own pockets and the pockets of other people, who are running these private schools. Public funds, public taxpayer money should not ever go to religious schools. And it seems like, all of us remember studying the Constitution, where we have a wall of separation between church and state. But in actuality, and I've talked to several lawyers about this, I'm like, why does this happen? Because the Missouri Constitution says you cannot spend Missouri taxpayer money on anything that has to do with religion. Well, the Supreme Court took care of that with 2 different rulings saying, actually, you can do that. We know, Tony, that the Supreme Court has been captured by, conservatives that have been working towards this since the fall of Brown v. Board. They finally got it. So it's going to take all of us standing up every single day. And in Missouri, they're coming in hard. In Texas, they weren't able to get it through last session. And they're going to try it again, but they've moved up to Missouri and they're like, well, let's just keep rolling. And we have, 15 or so bills being proposed in the House and the Senate to privatize public schools.
And this is really how the Republicans when these state legislators decide to target something, is they pile on and file bills. And a lot of these bills, especially in Missouri, what'll happen, and you can speak to this, but what'll happen is one, they'll file the same bill. It'll be the same exact bill, and they'll have a head sponsor and then co-sponsors, but it's always the same sponsors on all the bills. They just do it so they can go back and they'd be like, I'm the sponsor of this bill, when they're the co-sponsor on the same bill 15 different times. And it's a strategy that they use. It's kind of like, an assault inside these committee hearings, because what they want to do is they really want that narrative to shape inside those committee hearings. And again, I'm kind of getting in the weeds there, but let me ask you, because I view this assault on public education, and I think we should pack it into a box where people understand it. I view it as almost the same exact assault on women as banning and criminalizing their right to receive health care. Because as most people know, children who are in public schools generally have a mom, a mother, and I believe that this issue is where the Republicans really want to strike at the heart of women's rights and knowing their consent and their rights for their children. Tell me, am I completely off base that this doesn't tie into that narrative as well, or am I missing something?
It feels like that because it's all under the umbrella of Christian nationalism, which is what we're seeing with abortion bans and book bans, anti DEI, the privatization of public schools. It all goes together. And this is why, Tony, and this is what people need to understand. Republicans don't have any policies other than cutting taxes for the wealthy, right? That's their whole goal. Betsy DeVos, the Koch brothers, all of those people, their end goal is not paying taxes. And so to get to that, they need to, pull the wool over everybody's eyes. They need to have folks voting against their self-interest. They need to tell them you need to vote like this because you're a Christian, which is not at all true, right? We know what Christianity was supposed to do, and that was to keep migrant moms and their children from drowning on the southern border. That's what a Christian would do. They would not step in and try to put their religion into every facet of our life. And that's what we're seeing. So it's all under this envelope of Christian nationalism. And that's something that your listeners really need to focus on and be pushing back on. Because Josh Hawley, I don't know if you've noticed in the last week or so, has been on this religion kick. He's saying, what does it look like to have a Christian economy? He's doing what is called a Seven Mountains mandate, but it's the fact that some Christians are called dominionists, think that they need to take over the seven facets of life, and it includes government and entertainment and education and all those things, and the economy. So he's pushing this out loud, and folks have been warning about this for years, and there is so much literature that you can read on Christian nationalism, and I would tell your listeners to start reading and start paying attention.
Well, we talk about this every day because I say it like this because so many people, focus in on Trump and that he's the problem and he's the issue, but Trump is a symptom of the disease. We have a disease that has really affected, and it hasn't metastasized yet, but it has really wrought especially rural areas and more predominantly white areas in this country, and it is white Christian nationalism. Some folks just call it Christian nationalism, but this truly is white Christian nationalism. And you see it when they're trying to undermine these public schools. And the reason why there's several different reasons why they're trying to undermine them. One of them is I want you to explain what the Herzog Foundation is. It feels like that's like for money or something, like they're trying to, make money or something like that. Maybe that's their motivation. So we'll talk about that. But the other thing too is to really strip away the strength of rural communities, right? Because the strength of rural communities is the community itself. And if they strip that away, they can convince them of almost anything. They can convince them that, hey, you need us, and you need us to explain how the separation of church and state doesn't exist. And then we'll tell you what God wants. And by what God wants, I mean is what me, white man with old wrinkly ball sack, wants you to do for me, because I need you to do it for me, because without that, I would be nothing. Because that's truly how white Christian nationalism is going to take hold and take power. But I say it in a way like this because everyone wants to have a national narrative. And I do national narratives, which is Trump is not the problem. Trump is not the threat. Trump is a symptom of the disease, white Christian nationalism. So tell me tell me about white Christian nationalism. Tell me what the Herzog Foundation is, and tell me why I shouldn't believe that this is for their own pocketbooks or something like that.
So the Herzog Corporation is
Corporation, sorry.
Yeah, well, there's two different ones. So
right.
The corporation has been a longstanding group and corporation that has like railroads, and they do road services, and they get government contracts to pave the highways, and that is originally how they acquired all of their wealth. They're in Northwest Missouri. They have a huge company in St. Joe, Missouri. However, after the owner died, they created something called the Herzog Foundation, and that was and this is their mission, to accelerate Christian education. And since 2019 or so, they've given millions of dollars to Republican candidates in Missouri. In fact, they employ a Republican representative. His name is Josh Hurlberg, and he is from Smithville. They employ him full time. He's a part-time legislator. And last year, Tony, this is such a coincidence.
I'm sure it
Last
is. I'm sure it is.
last year he wrote 6 bills to advance vouchers in Missouri. So we have legislators who are working for corporations and writing legislation to help these corporations make money, do the things they want. So I find that a little strange. But we also have Rex Sinkfeld, who has been, he's a Missouri billionaire, and he just a few weeks ago. This is also a coincidence.
I'm sure.
Tony.
I'm sure.
There is a representative from St. Charles, and he wrote a bill to install charter schools in St. Charles. And 7 days later, he got a $10,000 donation from Rex Sinkfeld. And I know all these things just happen.
Right.
But I think if we really start looking, and this is where it's frustrating, because they are coming after candidates, Democratic candidates like me. Something really insane happened to me a few weeks ago. And so they're coming after small grassroots candidates for $30 donations, while you have candidates who accept hundreds of thousands of dollars in dark money from PACs, and there is nothing done about that. So we have an issue with ethics in this state, and with the fact that they are weaponizing parts of Missouri state government to go after Democratic candidates.
And they're modeling this in several different states. This isn't just, a Missouri problem. What happens is they model it in one state and they're like, hey, that'll work over there in that state. And then like, hey, that'll work in that state and that'll work in that state. We can make sure this state can out Florida, and this state can out Texas, and this state can out Missouri. And they keep snowballing and keep going on and on and on with their corruption. I would like to talk for just a second, though, because I want to take a minute before we let you go of what people can do, because that's what a lot of people come up against. They're like, okay, this is the problem, but what the hell do we do about it? You know what I mean? And that's what I think I think you're best at is showing people that there is a solution for fixing these. These are not just problems that are problems. There are solutions to fix these problems. They're long, hard work to fix those. So I want to go back to the donation. I read your thread on Twitter about this. You have donations that are under $50. And apparently this donation was somehow, like you said, a coincidence, made to your organization. I think it was $30, and it was made under an anonymous person that you couldn't find anywhere. And then it just happened that specific one was reported to a watchdog. So tell me about how that happened in just a few minutes. What did happen with that?
So I ran for state rep in 2022. I ended up, it was just me running, and then my campaign manager was also my treasurer, who was also a professor. So I mean, we have lots of things going on with this 2-woman campaign. I ended up taking in almost $275,000 in small donations, 8,000 donations. And one of those that came in right at the end of the campaign was for $30. And it was in my former representative's name. We didn't see it. It didn't come across the radar because it was $30. It also went through Act Blue, which, you would think that they're vetting donations, but they're not. And so somehow, another coincidence, my representative found out about it as soon as it was done. He made
$30. The $30.
Yeah,
seems like a big deal.
Out of $275,000, this $30 donation. But he wrote to the MEC, which is the ethics committee, and he said, hey, Jess has made a contribution to her own campaign in my name. And I was like, no, I did not do that. And I said, but I'll refund it because you can do that. And they were like, nope, too late. You accepted it. Now we're going to investigate. And I was like, okay. I mean, I didn't do it. So Tony, they found out that in fact, I did not do it. Some person in Massachusetts did it. They tracked them down through their IP, and they were like, yeah, I did it. And guess what? That person committed wire fraud, but guess who got the fine?
I would imagine it was you, because somehow you accepted the $30. I mean, it is, Jess, I'm going to tell you, it is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. I mean,
I mean, a
it's
$10,000 donation from Rex Sinkfeld, yeah, great, but $30, and this is the serious part that it should send a chill down everyone's spine. They do not blink an eye at 120,000 from a PAC. They will investigate $30. And so that it goes to the heart of the matter that how do Democrats in states like mine raise money? We do it $10 at a time, right? This is meant to scare Democratic candidates, and it has, because that's all I've heard from a week.
right. How am I going to spend weeks on end being investigated for $30 of someone who gave me $30 that I don't know who it is, and they typed in some weird name so that I would get in trouble because they just happen to probably point it out to someone else. And that's the other thing, because when I read it and I saw it and I messaged you and I was like, this seems sus, like at best. And it feels like there's someone out there that did this intentionally because they're scared of you. So I mean, I guess the long story short, the good news is you're striking fear in their hearts that they're working so hard that they're willing to spend $30 and set it up to where they can spend, I don't know how many hours you spent on the investigation, but I'm sure it was several hours.
Well, it was an entire year, but I'll tell you this, the first people who found out about it, they found out immediately, and it was all of the school privatizers.
No kidding.
Greg Keller, who is a GOP operative. Listen to this, Tony. He's a GOP operative. He helped create a right-wing movement in Sweden for Kanye West, and he was tweeting about me from Israel.
So he just happened to stumble across that. Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible that he just stumbled across
another coincidence.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure no one was like, hey, you got to go start tweeting about this. And it's funny because they claim you have some sort of bot army or something. So and I gotta say, Jess, you've been on the show several times, and I don't know how much. I don't know if the bot army costs $30. But I would like, if you got access to a bot army, this would be really interesting because they always claim that about, it's all projection is what I'm saying.
It's all projection.
So let's get back to the problem at hand, because the problem at hand is that the audience hears what you're saying, because we talk about white Christian nationalism here every day, that it is the disease and there's symptoms of the disease. And a lot of these symptoms are rich white folks coming and trying to destroy our communities, destroy our country, destroy our constitutions, whether it's our federal constitution or our state constitutions. They're trying to take away your rights, not only just ban and criminalize pregnancies and ban privacy in doctors' offices, but they're trying to ban the right for mothers to send their children to schools in their communities and do it for no cost for them. And they're banning all these rights. Now, what the hell can we do about it? Because this seems daunting. It seems like a huge task. And really, it is a huge task. It's going to take a long time because a lot of this stuff is affiliation, and people vote based on affiliation. We're going to see that over this week in Iowa. Tomorrow it's going to start with this primary season kicking off. But what can we do? What can we do to undermine this white Christian nationalism that wants to have no separation of church and state and wants to tell us what we can and can't do?
Well, the first thing we do is name it, which you have done. This is what it is. And the second thing is we run everywhere. And I know we've talked about this before, and people are like, what can I do? Entire swaths of America have been left as a Republican playground. People should care about what's going on in red states because our policies bleed into blue states. Because rich folks are using our red states and our red state AGs to take trans care, abortion bans, book bans, to take it from the state straight up to SCOTUS, where they will rule in their favor. So they're using these states purposefully, and they've been doing this and working towards this for decades. So the first thing we do is step up and tell the Democrats, stop walking away from rural parts of America. Stop walking away from races that you think are difficult, right? You got to stand up and you've got to do something. And that means that we run and we have someone to vote for in every area. Because no matter what, Tony, when people look at Missouri, you'll have someone from New Jersey or New York who will say, they get what they vote for. This is what they did. And I can tell them, I didn't have people to vote for. I had no Democrat to vote for. I couldn't do any better. I couldn't vote in my self-interest. So we we draw a line in the sand and say, we are not going to give this up anymore. I don't matter, no matter how hard it is. Make sure people understand what's going on. Make sure that they know that abortion bans and book bans and trans care bans and privatizing public schools are all in the same basket of white Christian nationalism. And then we fight back.
That is right. And I tell you, I'm excited for the turnout in the 2024 election. I really am. I think it's going to be massive turnout. I think it's going to be one of the biggest turnouts of several demographics that we're ever going to see in this country, of minorities, of women. It's going to be a huge demographic. And I think you're right. If those choices are on the ballot when that huge turnout happens, I think it can shape and shift what is normal in these red states. Because I look at a state like Missouri, and I argue with some people about this in my state, in our state, and I say, Missouri is not as red as you think it is.
Mm-mm.
It appears that way.
Right.
It feels that way sometimes. And it may be red, but it's not as red as it appears. That's the illusion. That's what they want you to believe. And if we get this high turnout, my vision of this is if we get this high turnout, we keep turnouts high, especially every 4 years, but more than anything, even in these midterm elections, we can really make some ground on where we've lost ground of protecting people's rights and people's liberty inside their own communities. Because I think politics is local, but with social media and so much speech, because I think free speech isn't our issue, it's too much speech is our issue, is that local issues have become nationalized, like you're saying, and they use the state to kind of nationalize what they want to dictate to everyone all around the country. All around the country. So how can you find these little pockets of candidates? How can we encourage people to get on the ballot? Because we're running out of time here. How can we catch people to get them on these ballots? What can you do? Who can you give? Where do you go? What do you say? What anyone seeking out in a red state, what can they do?
Well, if they're thinking of running, I hope that they would, and you can contact Alex Johnson with the Missouri Democrat if you're interested in funding these candidates, because I'm executive director of an organization whose sole mission is to give money to these down ballot candidates who normally don't get a dime, and that's bluemissouri.org. And if you know anybody, really encourage them. Now, I do have some news that I can't share, and it's not about me personally. But something big is about to happen in Missouri on Thursday. And I hope this will drive people to the ballot in 24. Well,
let's do this. On Thursday, I'm going to be watching your account, of course, because I know you're going to be making videos about it. So let's do this. Let's try next week, if you've got a free day, to come tell us about this big thing that's going to happen on Thursday. And let the audience know. Well, is that a deal? Can we shake? Can we do a digital shake on it? Shake on it. We're going to have Jess Piper. Jess, where can the audience find you and keep track of everything that you're doing? Because you are doing a lot of work and you're doing it to advance democracy. So tell them where they can find you.
On Twitter, I will never call it X. On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, I'm Piper for Missouri. On TikTok, I'm Jess Piper Mo. And then, you can just put my name in Google and you could probably find some horrible articles about me, but also my social media and something about a $30 donation.
Well, go find those horrible articles about a $30 donation that just was a coincidence, and then go give Jess a follow on any of the social media accounts that you're on. Jess Piper, my friend, thank you for being there for democracy. We need more folks like you. And I know that you're gathering up all the folks that are like-minded and love our democracy and want to see it for our children and our grandchildren. And also so they can just, go to public school and, kind of have crappy summers, crappy winters, snow days, that sort of thing.
Pizzas.
Yeah, square pizza, horrible cheeseburgers. But this is what we want. This is how we were raised. Jess Piper, thank you very much. Audience, don't go around. We got more coming back right back at you right after this break. Thanks, Jess.